Welcome to today's Explainer. We're tackling a really awesome question today. Why are food chains short? Let's jump right in. Have you ever looked out at a forest or a meadow and wondered how all those plants and animals actually survive together? Well, here is the central scientific mystery we're going to solve today. Why do food chains usually have only 4 or 5 links? I mean, really think about it. We see these huge ecosystems with literally thousands of species. So why doesn't a hawk get eaten by something bigger and then that gets eaten by something even bigger for 20 or 30 steps? There's this fascinating, kind of invisible rule of nature stopping that from happening. Okay, let's dive into this beautiful meadow ecosystem. A totally healthy ecosystem completely depends on a balanced flow of energy. Picture it. You've got the bright sun shining down on the green grass, little insects buzzing around, frogs resting, snakes slithering, and a magnificent hawk circling way up high in the sky. To solve our puzzle today, we need to map out exactly how energy travels from the ground all the way up to that hawk in the sky. Let's walk through our standard food chain here to see exactly who is eating whom. At step 1, we start with the grass, which actually makes its own food using sunlight. Pretty cool, right? Then, a hungry grasshopper comes along at step 2 and munches on that grass. Moving right along to step 3, a frog snaps up the grasshopper. Then, at step 4, a snake catches the frog. And finally, at step 5, our hawk swoops down and catches the snake. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 links. And the chain just stops there. But what exactly happens between the grass and the hawk to stop the chain from continuing? The secret lies in a really powerful number, 10%. In science, we actually call this the 10% rule. And here's what it means. Every single time an animal eats something, it only passes about 10% of that energy up to the next level. So where does the rest of it go? Well, think about our grasshopper. It doesn't just sit perfectly still waiting to be eaten. No way. It hops around, it grows, it breathes, and it uses a ton of energy just to stay warm and alive. By the time the frog eats the grasshopper, a massive 90% of the energy the grasshopper got from the grass has already been used up or lost his body heat. Only a tiny fraction, just 10%, is actually kept and passed on to the frog. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly how fast that energy disappears. We measure this energy in units called kilojoules. Let's start at the bottom with our grass, holding a massive 10,000 kilojoules of energy. But when the grasshopper eats the grass, it only gets 1,000. The frog eats the grasshoppers and only gets 100. The snake gets just 10. By the time we reach the hawk at the very top, the energy has dropped to just 1 single kilojoule. That is literally just 0.01% of the original energy. The drop-off is incredibly dramatic. Now, think about what it actually takes to be a top predator. A hawk is a large, super powerful bird. It takes a massive amount of energy to fly around, constantly scan the ground with that sharp eyesight, dive at high speeds, and just survive out in the wild. Because they burn through so much energy just staying alive, they need a whole lot of food. But as we just saw, by the time the energy reaches that 5th step of the food chain, there's barely any energy left. After 4 or 5 transfers, the energy basically just runs out. There simply isn't enough energy remaining in the hawk to support some hypothetical level 6 predator trying to eat it. The energy tank is officially empty. This shrinking energy also explains another really fascinating mystery of nature: why animal populations look the way they do. Let's compare the bottom of the chain to the top. Because there's so much energy at the bottom, you're going to find many thousands of plants and hundreds of insects. But as that energy shrinks, the number of animals the ecosystem can support also shrinks. Higher up, you might only find a few dozen frogs and maybe a small handful of snakes. At the very top, reigning over the meadow, you'll find very few hawks, often just one. The ecosystem physically cannot support thousands of hawks because there just isn't enough energy moving up the chain to feed them all. So what have we uncovered in our investigation today? Well, we know that only about 10% of energy passes up to the next level. Because of this rapid energy loss, nature strictly limits food chains to just 4 or 5 links. But you know what? This isn't a flaw. It's actually a sign of total brilliance. Short chains help energy flow quickly and directly. Ultimately, short food chains equal healthy, stable ecosystems. It ensures every single animal gets the right amount of energy to survive, keeping the whole system perfectly balanced. We've seen how energy moves step by step, losing a bit of its power along the way. But as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a giant question to think about. We know the grass at the very beginning gets its energy directly from the sun. In fact, almost every single living thing on Earth depends on the sun's energy to kick off their food chain. So, young scientists, imagine this. What would happen to our entire ecosystem the grasshopper, the frog, the snake, and the mighty hawk if the sun suddenly disappeared?